3. My name is Rhapsody, his name is Orbital Potato, and welcome back
to Shellshock Live. Hey.
What the hell did you just say?
Sorry.
To what? Welcome back to Shellshock Live. You're probably in a really poor position here. I don't think this is going to be long for, or rather, I don't think you're long for the world.
I think I'm stuffed. Yeah, I think I'm going to be stuffed like straight away. All right.
Best of luck.
All right. Oh. All it needs is one. All it needs is one. Oh, come on. How are you? How
am I going to get that?
How?
I don't know if I can reach this.
Come on. Come on. What is this? This horse hockey. Unbelievable.
Hey, precisely.
All right, let me see what I got. All right, you know what? I was meant to ask you, by the way. I'm looking for some tips. And I was wondering if you had any vocal exercise warm-ups that you do before recording that you would like to impart.
I do. You need to promise before I divulge any of these that you aren't going to make me do them.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. I listen to a lot of quite lyrically dense rap when I'm starting up, because it helps me kind of limber up and get into the flow of speaking quite quickly and trying to get everything out relatively fast. I literally haven't changed my bead since the first shot. This is excellent.
This is good.
But it is a really good vocal warm-up because singing can kind of strain your voice a little bit. Obviously, there's normal vocal warm-ups you can do before singing, which are usually just kind of like going up and down scales in different amounts. But I find quite lyrically dense rap. It's really good for that. So I really like MF Doom for that. Right? Gets you in a good flow.
Like, I mean, you know,
like half of Anderson .Paak's.
What about like
tracks?
What about like do re mi fa sol la ti do? You know?
Yeah, that's the going up and down in scales for singing.
Yeah.
Singing warm-ups.
Do you do that?
I have done that. I've done that with I don't do do re mi fa sol la ti do. I do mi me ma, which is kind of like a lamer version of that.
A lamer version.
As well as Figaro going up and down in scale.
Figaro. What, like?
Figaro.
Oh, okay. All right, you'll have to excuse me. I'm not a very
Whoa, we're doing double shot? Oh, you got me. Is this gonna be like an instant?
Oh.
Yikaroonies.
Yikaroonies, indeed. I didn't even realize what do we say? 200 kilowatt? 200 kilowatt hours? All right.
Yeah, I'm dead.
That was a great game, honestly.
Yes,
that was fantastic. Hold on a minute. Let me set the bar a little bit higher. I mean, if I can win that quickly, we need to pump it up a little bit. There we go.
Of course, naturally. Do you have anything that you do as a ritual before warming up? Not just warming up vocal practices, but anything that you ritualistically do?
No, not really. But I feel like I'm looking for a habit, right? All right. So let's sort of talk a little bit about this, right? So, me in my life, like I'm quite an arrogant guy, you know. Just generally, I don't feel like that comes as a shock to anyone. But like, not even like particularly like arrogant to people, more just like arrogant because I'm just like set in my ways and whatever, right? So stubborn. Yeah, that's probably the word for it, actually, not arrogant. Now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Also misinformed. I'm horrifically bad at using the correct words, but whatever, doesn't matter. Oh boy, I love that weapon. That's so.
What?
That's, Anyway, point is that recently, right? I recently started taking up I recently took up bullet journaling, right? Do you know about this?
Bullet
Yeah, do
journaling?
you know about this? All right.
No.
So bullet journaling is kind of like a fad, I guess, with the whole, like, I guess kind of like the hipster crowd. You know what I mean? You know?
Oh,
Yeah,
I do.
yeah. The hipster crowd. Like, I'm not a hipster. I'm not part of any crowd, but you know, bullet journaling is basically just like a way to like lay out your stuff, and I'm not very good at it, and I don't really bullet journal properly. But the point is that I've started to like try and track things a lot more, like try and track like what I'm doing, try and track what I want to do, you know? So I feel that I've lost the thread of this conversation, and now I don't know where to go because I forgot what we were talking about.
Ritualistic things that you do before recording.
No, I don't have anything. Sorry, that was the completely off topic.
To digress, I feel like I probably am a hipster.
Yeah.
I've more recently, like, I think I walked out of a film and someone said, "Did you see a movie?" And I said, "I saw Six." And I was like, "Oh no."
That's hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious.
I have a favorite cafe.
Oh.
I have a favorite cocktail bar.
Oh. Yeah, you're a hipster.
I know the bartender at my favorite cocktail bar.
You're definitely a hipster then, dude. Like,
yeah. I'm currently doing another rerun, a hirsute pursuit, which just to say trying to grow facial hair.
a hirsute pursuit.
It's going okay so far. Yeah, a hirsute pursuit. Hirsute meaning hairy, and pursuit meaning kind of an attempt. Yes.
I feel like you should write a book, you know? Like the diaries of a
Rhapsody's Hirsutes Pursuits and How Else to
No.
Fail by Ryan James Pearson.
No, I feel like you need to, you know.
Failure is my best friend, because no one else would be, by Ryan James Pearson.
Well, no, I feel like, you know, Confessions of a Almost Hipster, you know?
Confessions of an Almost Hipster?
All right.
That's already stepping off of the point. I am very clearly
Okay.
a hipster.
Oh no. No. No.
I went to a black tie event and I wore a tan suit with an slightly off tan, very tasteful vest.
Oh wow.
My partner and I were the only people not wearing black and white, except for the ladies, of course, being able to wear dresses. Oh, wouldn't want to dress if I could have.
You should have.
I really
You really should have. That's. Well, I must say. Congratulations. I'm glad that we've got that out in the open. That you are a hipster. You're
That I'm a hipster? I feel like that's probably abundantly
Yeah, I feel like
clear to anyone who's watched the channel for any period of time. It comes across when I try and describe my job title. Indie game content creator.
All right. Let's pause this very interesting hipster discussion, because I do want to come back to it, because hipster chat is great fun. But like indie games, what do you think about indie games? Because
Love 'em.
I've started to really dislike that term. Like indie games. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. Intensely dislike it. Because
Is there any particularly good reason for
not
that?
a good reason at all. But like I just feel like everyone and their dog is now an indie game developer, right? And I feel like there's this sort of cult that's grown up around it about like, you know, stick it to the man, stick it to the AAA game industry. Not like I got a problem with that, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like it's a little bit cultish, you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
I'm afraid to say that kind of mentality, the mentality of we will do for ourselves what the money men and the larger publishers won't allow creatively, is a large amount of what I really appreciate about indie games. I feel like they get to take creative risks that aren't necessarily considered commercially viable on first blush.
Oh, look, don't get me wrong. I agree with that entirely. And of course, indie games, there's some indie games, right, that are like genuinely like great games. And there's a lot of really good. I guess this could technically be classified as like an indie game as well. I mean, like,
Yeah,
for
definitely.
sure. And, you know, I don't necessarily have a problem with indie games in general. It's just the whole idea that if you make something, and even if you've never made anything before, whatever, you can still, like, put it out as an indie game, and there's just something that just doesn't sit right with me about it, you know? I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but it's a bit cultish, you know?
Is it the breadth of the term indie game? Like, you can have a development studio of, you know, expats from the game development software
Yeah.
kind of sphere, all working together and publishing an indie game, and then you can also have, you know, one dude just hanging out and after school making a game.
That's true.
And not necessarily making a good one.
I think that's probably it. Like, the range of quality is, I mean that's a pretty silly thing to say, because I mean, I know that the variety of quality in a AAA game is, you know, just as large, if not actually larger, really, most of the time, than indie games. But oh my god, really? that's some weapon.
Breakamania.
That's good. It's really good. I don't know. It's also just, like, not a very good descriptor of, like, a genre, even though it counts as a genre. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it counts as a genre in the same way that I would say, like, a AAA shooter. I would say an indie platform.
Yeah.
The genre comes thereafter. Okay. It does, however, describe a little bit of the sensibility behind something. Usually, at the moment.
I don't know. There's just something about it that just doesn't sit right with me. I don't know what it is.
It's fair enough.
I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something about it, you know?
I've kind of started to embrace indie more and more on. Ooh. Give me a couple of years and I'm going to be the kind of person arguing what is and is not indie.
Okay. Well, I mean, what classifies as indie in your eyes? Currently, of course.
The main character of Indiana Jones. Anything independent. Okay, so obviously the actual term is referring to anything independently published, which a lot of things that describe themselves as indie aren't independently published, or at the very least aren't universally independently published. They would be independently published on one platform, and then, you know, Focus Home Interactive would publish them for another platform, or some other studio that kind of just republishes other games for new platforms.
So hold on, pause that thought for like 2 seconds, right? Yeah. So there's like the guy that makes Democracy 3 and Production Line, Cliff Harris.
Positech,
Positech, right? So he develops. I mean, he is an independent developer. You know, don't get me wrong. He's an independent developer. He is a game studio. He's a Positech game studio. So if he, as his studio has published other people's games, you know, like I'm thinking of like Political Animals, for example, was one. Now, in that transaction, do both of those parties not become indie developers anymore? Because on a technical level, they're not.
Well, no. Because if so, to expand upon that, Valve is technically, under the definition that I'm talking about, indie. They self-publish.
That's true.
Right.
That's
so
true.
What I'm talking about is the foibles of that definition. Okay. I think indie is more of a mentality. Which is to say, it is something that kind of transcends that. It may include being independently published, but usually it's a lower budget, smaller production. We're not talking like AA, which is lower budget, smaller productions from AAA studios. But it's a lower budget, smaller production from a relatively small, if not new studio, that is founded almost entirely upon the conceit of an idea that you wish to see through to fruition, rather than we need to make this summer's next blockbuster. It's driven more by inspiration rather than... That would be a way that I would prefer to describe it. I understand that is a horribly biased way to describe them as well.
No. I think that's... I mean, like, that's like when we're... I mean, I suppose there is probably a technical definition out there, but when we're arguing in a field where there is in effect no definition, anything goes as far as I'm concerned. So I mean, that's a fairly legit definition. You know, I just don't know. I mean, like let's take another example, right? I'm just trying to throw things into the mix here to try and get a little bit of trying to tease out a little bit of a definition.
Oh yeah.
So one of our favorite games of all time that we play on a regular basis, ARK Survival Evolved, right?
Yes.
ARK Survival Evolved. I believe that was.
At some point, we're gonna have to explain that meme because that's a very old
retro meme. That's like what, 3 years old at this rate?
That's back when I had like 100.
Yeah. That is totally retro. Oh yeah.
So no one's gonna know it. But yes, ARK Survival Evolved, my favorite game of all time.
ARK Survival Evolved, your favorite game of all time. I believe that was self-published. I think.
Almost.
Yeah,
certainly.
so that was self-published. So they've released a follow-up game to that. Wow, how did that not? Okay, whatever. They've released a follow-up game to that. They've released Atlas, which is a pirate-themed ARK survival. I have no interest in playing this game.
Okay, so it's effectively saying, hey, screw you, Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, kinda, I guess. Right? So it's like, does that still count as an indie game, even though it is an indie game?
Does it count as an indie game, even though it is? Let me have a think about that for a moment.
I mean, does it count as an indie game, even though the studio is like now a multi-million-pound studio and it's released its second game and it's still self-publishing?
Okay, so that is difficult because I'm not going to use that example because I'm unfamiliar with that example broadly because I hate that game. But also,
what?
So I know, I've been hiding it so well. I'll be using the example of Clay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Because Don't Starve was unabashedly indie.
Yeah.
It was crowdfunded from get-go. It had like an indie mentality about it. It had what you might associate as an indie art style and an indie direction. Another example would be Supergiant as well. Would you consider Hades to be indie?
What's Hades? What is Hades?
Hades is Supergiant's most recent game.
Not familiar.
Not technically independently published, but definitely smaller. Would you consider Bastion to be indie? Would you consider Transistor to be indie? I would say like AA for both of those, even though Bastion was the first publication of that company. It feels like indie is so much more nuanced as a descriptor.
You see, that's right. Is that I feel that there is like a firm definition of what an indie game should be, but it's really difficult to like put a finger on exactly what that definition should be, because otherwise you'll end up excluding games which obviously are indie but don't feel like they should be indie, and then there's other games which are definitely not indie but feel like they are. You know what I mean? It's like that's such a difficult concept.
There's almost an ineffable essence. There's a description that is used in the censorship business when talking about adult content in terms of pornography. And it says, I don't know how to define pornography, but I sure as hell know it when I see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it feels like that is relevant to the indie sphere in particular.
Exactly that. But that's just, I don't know. You can't put your finger on it. And it's a difficult question.
No, not at all.
And I do want to point out, I'm not being like purposefully malicious towards indie games. I like myself some good indie games, but you know, it's just difficult to pinpoint exactly what one is and what constitutes an indie game. Because
no, definitely.
a lot of bad games as well, right? A lot of bad games will be slapped with the indie title. You know, oh, this game was like independent studio, it's pretty bad. You know, like almost with the expectation that it shouldn't be good because it is indie. Does that make sense?
Yes, I got that back when Please no flame. I got that back when I put a negative review on Dust: An Elysian Tale.
Okay.
I understand that game was developed entirely by one dude, extremely indie. But I reviewed it and I was like, hey, this is like real bad. Like all of the voice acting is astonishingly poor. The animation really doesn't help. The characterization from start to end is fraught. The plot makes no sense whatsoever. And it felt like I was punching down. Like, should they be judged on a different scale? I don't necessarily think so, because I think every time I see a AAA game, I have such fatigue of them. It takes a really outstanding AAA game for me to actually like them. If anything, I'm more prejudiced against AAA games than I am against indie games for being in their kind of same realm. Like, I judge them differently rather than judging indie games differently.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like in the indie game sphere, a lot of the time it's much easier to tell what is or what is not going to be a particularly good product.
Nice.
Tried. It's much easier in the indie game sphere to tell what is and isn't going to be a particular product, because there isn't that kind of level of polish and sheen put on what might otherwise be described as a turd.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'll grant that. I'll grant that. Nice. Not bad. Yeah, no, that's fair comment. That's fair comment, but it's so difficult. It's so difficult to sort of
Oh yeah, I don't
describe.
disagree.
I mean, yeah.
It's a rough thing to do.
It is a rough thing to do. It is a really, really rough thing to do. I don't know. I don't think there's any correct answer to it, you know? It's just one of those things.
There's definitely not at the moment.
Yeah.
If anyone feels like they have a concise definition of what is and is not indie, feel free to leave it in the comments down below. But also, be aware, I am going to argue with you about it. Almost definitely.
What about, like, music, right? What's the definition of indie music?
So independently published, a much more relevant example in music.
Yeah, literally just independently published.
The means of production aren't the means of production aren't so distributed as they are in online platforms like Steam, Desora, GOG, GMG, etc. kind of publishing your games, or rather faux publishing your games for you, being a storefront that publishes your games. But also, there are very, very, very few artists in the music industry that act as their own publishers, whereas game studios do it often.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like the distinction of did you publish this yourself is a much more relevant distinction there. And I'll admit, I'm a huge fan of a lot of indie music. I listen to a lot of experimental noise rap.
Experimental noise rap? Is that a thing? Is that a genre?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Huh.
Listen to some clipping. Lowercase c Lipping full stop. Oh,
Have you listened to any white noise recently?
No, I
that's
haven't.
my favorite indie band. Yeah, white noise is my favorite indie band. It's really like the depth of the music is really, it's astounding actually. You can really hear the emotion and the passion that's crafted into the static.
I'm assuming that you're being sincere here.
Sorry.
But somehow I feel like being hoodwinked.
I couldn't possibly comment. I couldn't possibly tell you. All right. Well, GG.
Such an eternal shame. Is this one on you or me?
On you.
For the moment, my name has been Rhapsody. The name of the game, Slay the Spire. Name my compatriot here, Orbital Potato. Why don't you tell us what you're currently doing on your channel, considering that this is 2 weeks ahead?
I thought you were going to say my companion has been Orbital Potato the Defect. I thought that's what I was expecting. You know, this has been Slay the Spire. Here's Orbital Potato the Defect. Or the Defect.
No. You definitely be...
Be the what, sorry?
Ironclad?
Really?
You'd probably be Merchant.
Is that an expanded chap? A DLC, bro?
No, it's not a modded chap. It's the fellow what man's the store.
Oh, okay. Alright. Fair. Yeah, the channel's good at the moment. There's a bunch of strategy simulation games going on at the moment. A lot of really, really good series, exciting stuff that I'm excited to publish very, very shortly. So in 2 weeks, the channel's going to be full of a backlog of really interesting stuff. So yeah, go check it out. It's pretty good.
Oh, you're doing a lot of not mentioning the names of any.
Well, there's nothing in particular. It's all quite mediocrely above average, slightly.
So go visit Orbital Potato's channel in the comments down below. It is mediocre average creator. Hopefully you've been enjoying yourselves. Hopefully we'll see you next time.
Bye.